have no idea where this will lead us, but I have a definite feeling it will be a place both wonderful and strange.
Hey, I'm JD.
And I'm Garon.
Welcome back to Investigating Twin Peaks. It is directed by Leslie Linka Glatter. I hope I pronounced that right. And she would go on to direct several more episodes, and also episodes of Gilmore Girls, Freaks and Geeks, and Mad Men, and Walking Dead. Like, she's kept working. She's done very well for herself. And this episode was the first episode written exclusively by co-creator Mark Frost. He co-wrote the first 3 episodes with David Lynch, including the pilot, and this was his first one on his own.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
I think it's a bit of an interesting episode in the way that there is still the massive cast and group of characters, but he didn't feel the need to shove every single character into the episode, and I think the episode benefited a bit from that. Any initial thoughts that you've got on the episode as a whole?
I'm enjoying how the dream is now coming into like little pieces of each part of the dream from a few episodes ago. That it's finally like the drapes and everything, you know, like those little things where it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's important that in this episode you realize how the color of the drapes, or just the drapes in general, can be an important piece of the puzzle, and how they can be a piece of the puzzle. So it's not like, okay, here's this dancing little man, what about him am I supposed to be looking at? Like, not just what he says, maybe other things about him as well will provide clues. And I think that that's important as we move forward with the series, and I think this episode does a good job of establishing that. I think this episode, I feel like it's kind of a sleeper episode in the way that the series, I feel like, has settled now.
Yeah.
And they do spend some time on the main plot, and we have an excellent visit to the Log Lady's cabin, and we'll talk about that later.
Which was nice.
So the main plot is moved forward, but I think, and maybe it was because it was Mark Frost, their intention of showing that this series is not just about Dale Cooper investigating the death of Laura Palmer, it's also about the town of Twin Peaks. And I think their intention is to tell stories and spend time with all the individual characters and all their stories, and clearly have a good time. They're having a good time with it, and I think they're just hoping that the viewer as well will get lost in that and not just be concerned with Laura's death.
Yeah. No,
and figuring out who the killer is.
I felt that as far as I noticed, this was another episode that I didn't take as much notes for. And it was because there wasn't anything, not that there wasn't anything new, because there was plenty of stuff that, you know, brought it up, and everything was kind of, the puzzle pieces are kind of coming together. But it was like, even with scenes with characters we already knew, it was their same character aspects that we already kind of know. So it just was adding on top of it. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, that person's a dick, or that person is mean, or that person seems nice, or this. It's each scene with each character fulfilled the already laid out potential for what we feel each character is.
Just kind of, not really confirming, but strengthening what you know about those characters and how you're viewing them.
Yeah.
And even somebody like Josie Packard being in the shadow at the end, and Ben Horn coming in.
Yeah.
And maybe they're actually doing a rope-a-dope on Catherine.
Yeah.
You start to... I feel like I have always thought up until this point, there's something that I don't trust about Josie.
Yeah.
And she's with Harry and stuff, and she's playing the innocent, kind of naive thing.
Yeah.
But like we were talking about in that opening pilot, it's the first character we see in the series is Josie putting on makeup
Yeah.
and presenting herself in a way that what is actually
Kind of, which is nice.
underneath that.
Which, yeah, it kind of is that. It's a cool first shot to take yourself back to and
Yeah.
see that, regardless of where this takes us, but takes on that effect of, putting on a mask, if you would say.
Yeah, what do we know
What
about
do we
these
know about
characters?
each person and what is actually, because characters that seemed not like the good guy or the good person, kind of thing, kind of are flipping around or staying the same, but it shows like kind of what each person is portrayed and what actually is underneath.
Yeah, I think a good example of that this episode is like you said in the pilot. I don't know if I like Bobby.
Yeah.
And
And
this
now-
episode, up until this episode, and he's still a brat
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
episode. But there's a scene with Dr. Jacoby, and it's supposed to be family counseling with Bobby and his mom and dad. But the doctor kind of excuses the mom and dad
Yeah.
and focuses on Bobby and immediately
How
just
insane.
kind of
yeah.
tears him apart.
Yeah.
Regardless of if he knew these things from Laura or not, because Laura was seeing him and he just played Bobby that way.
Yeah.
Or if he just read
Read it,
Bobby
yeah.
and just tore him apart, like looked through his armor and just
Yeah, I don't.
pulled one.
First glance, I took it as that, as though he already knew from Laura. Like, I kind of was playing it in my head that way of like, all right, I thought something else was going to maybe go down. Who knows? But when he was like, all right, let's cut the crap here, and then goes into it, it kind of seemed like the whole, first lovemaking kind of thing. What happened? What did she say? What she laughed at you? So I'm like, did he read into the files in that? But it's like, if it wasn't for Laura had also been seeing him, makes me think that she told him that or
Right.
said those kind of things.
Dr. Jacoby at this point has admitted to Dale Cooper that he was in love with Laura. So at the beginning of that scene, when he starts to tear into Bobby, you're feeling like ulterior motives. And but I feel like by the end of it, he gets Bobby to release these things inside of him and just break down, which is an extremely healthy thing to do. And maybe he is just being a good therapist.
Yeah,
at
a
that
good
point,
therapist, yeah. Yeah.
So we'll just have to see where that leads.
Which
But
led
I
to
thought that was a great scene with Bobby.
him saying she made me sell drugs.
Right.
Which gets into that whole factor of how we went back to the beginning of saying
What do we know?
Yeah, what do we know about Laura? Like, was she this good person who everybody loved and knew, but some people knew her for her, who knows how edgy side? And to think of him saying she made me sell the drugs, and it's not like he's saying it to the cops, or it's not like he's saying it to his family. He's saying it to now. Finally, the therapist has broken him down enough to be like,
Right. He's not making an
Yeah,
excuse. He's
he's
not
not
like,
making-
she made me know. He's
no,
just like,
he's like flat out, this is what happened. And for it to trigger enough for him to say, oh, and she laughed at you because what did you do? Something there to where it's like, okay, this is true, kind of thing. And it's like,
just cracked him.
yeah, and it cracked him. And now he's just like, no, I didn't want to do it. She made me sell drugs. And it's like, and then it ends there. So you're wondering now, it kind of, just another layer of the cake of knowing that, okay, we already have these things in our mind that she wasn't who everybody thought she was, except for maybe to her closest friends.
I think actually, from what we know and what people have said about Laura and what's been revealed about Laura, it seems like Bobby may have known her the best.
Yeah.
Because James,
Yeah.
he has said, there were things about Laura that people didn't know about. I feel like Bobby would have known potentially the most complete, had maybe the most complete idea
Yeah,
of who
yeah.
Laura was, because he was involved with the drug kind of thing, the high school stuff, a lot of her friends. So it is,
Because
It's interesting
even
to
her
see.
friends, I feel like, her closest friends, besides Bobby, I feel like more or less know the stories that is being told rather than actually being there with her
Right.
in moments. So it's like, regardless of, you have the friends who might know everything about you, but unless they're in those moments, they're only going on hearsay. But if you have the friends who are like, no, I was there with him when we did this, or we went streaking, or we did all that. I know the story of actually what happened, and I feel like you said, Bobby is there for all of that as far as
one interesting
in moments
thing.
for that.
James mentions either in the pilot, I think, he mentions to Donna that Laura said that Bobby killed somebody.
Okay.
And in this episode, Bobby says to Dr. Jacoby, "Have you ever killed someone, Doctor? My dad has." And it just felt like, it made me think of Laura telling James that Bobby had killed somebody. So
yeah.
because it felt like more
Yeah.
something to do with that. And I wonder if something is going on there.
That is true. That does take it back a bit. That does, kind of going to that point of like
Like what were Bobby and Laura really up to?
yeah, have you ever killed someone? Yeah, that does. And so for him to ask that question, which is just like a left field question, even though it's like
There's something.
if I went to a counselor right now, I wouldn't be asked, have you ever killed someone? I don't think so. It's and I understand the situation, but it's still not something that you would bring up. And for him to go right off the bat and be like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, he's in trouble in some ways, and he needs some help. And it's obvious by the end of that meeting with the doctor that the kid's not doing well, regardless of what he is showing off to others. I liked the scene of Audrey breaking down watching Leland dance. Audrey is another character that I think she's got it in her to be a manipulator and to take charge. You
We
see
saw
her,
it.
suddenly and he's like Miss Horn, it's almost like he saw her becoming her dad.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of somebody growing up too fast. If you have the ability, sure, we're all capable of doing things beyond our years when we're teenagers.
Yeah.
Does that mean you should? When you make that pass into, okay, let's take drugs, let's have sex, let's drink early, let's, get into fights.
The rite of
let's
passage.
go into gangs or whatever the hell it is. Everybody has the ability to do that, and I think kids are exposed even more now to it with the internet and computers and stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you should. And I think Aubrey, she certainly seems in control, but then it's so immediate when Cooper just says, "I'll see you later, Aubrey," and she's just like,
Yeah. It takes,
lovey-dovey
it brings
eyes
that
to
back to that, seeing her actual age and seeing that moment and then knowing that she's 18, kind of thing. And it kind of takes it back. I think you forget, nothing against the actor, the character or anything, but you forget that she's 18, I think.
Yeah.
And in some senses of it. So it's it makes it nice to where she's saying that, and then it takes you back to experience and see things differently as far as yeah, that's right, she's 18, so that makes sense. Or that's what she was doing in that moment. It's oh dang, it's oh. So even her telling what position she's gonna get at the store, it takes you in that position of oh, imagine being 18 and having that power of
to exploit
and
if
being
you want
manipulative,
to.
and you see lots of you see films and shows and stuff where you have that, I don't want to say spoiled brat, but the person who is my daddy owns the bank, so I'm gonna, you're gonna give this to me, otherwise this is gonna happen. And so, and having those mindsets, kind of thing to where, and it comes with the, I guess, territory of kind of getting your way. And so starting young, I feel being 18 and constantly getting her way, and now using that to her advantage to try to, to figure things out is the thing. Is she's trying to.
Yeah, I don't think there's any moments really in this episode where I feel like what a privileged little brat she is. And I think her character in this episode specifically goes through a nice arc, and I think it's fairly expertly crafted because we're showing her at the beginning. She sees Cooper, and she's got such a crush on him.
She's very smitten.
And he's not in the mood, but she sits down anyways without even blinking. And by the end of that, she's just you really feel her age there.
Yeah.
And then in the scenes that follow with her, we forget her age and we look at her as a powerful person until she breaks down watching Leland.
Yeah.
And then the next time we see her, and she's naked in Cooper's bed. And that's the end of the episode. Yeah. And you're kind of like Cooper, potentially, wow, it's very easy to forget how old she is.
Yeah.
But she's 18.
Yeah.
Which, sure, that's legal.
Yeah.
But you're also an FBI agent.
Yeah, there's lots of things to go through in your head, and you're like,
a good idea, but me as a fan, I'm like, go for Cooper,
Go
like I
boy.
love Audrey and Cooper together.
And I'm just like,
but
what?
It does feel very complicated.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's just funny how, like, the specifics of it, it's like, okay, I see how it was, like, getting us for suspense, but, like, she left the door open barely, then you walk in, and she's there naked in bed, and that's where it kind of goes into that possible younger mindset.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. And
to where it's
I
like,
thought you were going to say, like, dramatic soap opera thing, but I think it is actually a very honest and genuine moment.
Yeah.
Because somebody in that mindset who's feeling particularly vulnerable.
Yeah, very vulnerable.
But also, to hell with it, I'm going to be bold. It's a real moment.
It takes back, even though she took control at the shop, I feel like she was most vulnerable recently watching. She was crying. She doesn't feel like she's in control. She's seeing things that she's not ready for. So I think the only thing she feels like she can be in control of is by being bold. And so she does, well, I'm going to take hold of it, and I'm lonely and I need this, and so I'm going to go and I'm going to be naked in this bed because I can control that. And that's that juvenile yet still wanting to be in control of a situation mindset. So it doesn't make sense. But like at first you're just like, why you left the door open? I mean, you could have at least closed it.
I'm glad this episode was written by a man, but I'm glad that it was directed by a woman. And I think that I don't know what the script looked like as it got to this director, the woman.
Yeah.
But it feels like I've certainly known young women who have put themselves out there, find themselves in a very awkward position, and then follow through with things that even though they know it's wrong, it's feeling wrong. But at that point they feel like, well, it would be even more awkward if I stopped it, which is awful, you know? So it's interesting that in the midst of all this ruckus of Twin Peaks, here we're shown a very real, very true moment with a young woman putting herself into a position of vulnerability, inviting someone in, and that's one of the grand differences between men and women's sexuality, where a man who penetrates and a woman has to invite. You know, it's a very different dynamic. And I feel like it's handled very well in this episode.
And I think it changes the perspective of not the episode. The episode is what it is, but when you think of it as, it was written by a man but directed by a woman, you take that and you see that. This was a very woman-centered episode as far as you have all Shelley. Yeah, you have pretty much every woman's point of view in their relationships.
Peggy smacking.
You have every single way of those of overcoming their emotions or like some kind of it has all of those. I don't know the strict theme to it that I can't come off with the top of my head right now, but it has those got the guy who just got out of prison, so is dealing with that. it's dealing with.
Oh.
You know, it's all these things where you see all these women in this episode,
And they're in the entire gamut of emotions and the entire range of it.
and you see them being
Even
vulnerable
actually-
and powerful
yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about it, but Norma, who owns the diner, I really liked her scene with Ed at the beginning at the gas farm, saying that Hank's getting out of jail, and it's kind of like Hank is like, "Oh, have you talked to him about it?" No,
Yeah.
not yet. Have you talked to Norma or wow, there's a lot. Ed and the patch woman, Ed's wife.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, no. And Norma, she's just like, enough is enough, Ed. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to do so. You've been in. I can't. She's in a more difficult position. Her husband is in jail.
Yeah.
I can see her being reluctant to be like, see you later.
Yeah,
I'm with
yeah.
somebody else. But Ed, you've got to get a spine. Like, you've got to do something.
She made sense. You know, there's always going to be an excuse.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. There's always going to be, and there's always going to, and which actually kind of was nice at that start of the episode, because that was a lot of the meaning of the episode. Of there's always going to be an excuse for her. What's her name? Who shot? Shelley. You know, that moment of just like, you know, you got to finally take a stand. Who else was there?
Catherine smacking.
Yeah, Catherine smacking.
And-
However, that ended with that, but it was like that, you know, taking a stand almost and taking the right for your own.
She was a little drunk, and
Yeah.
he manipulated her back into where he wanted her to be. But then he went in, and Josie was in the position of power, and he was kissing her hand, and Josie was just kind of
Yeah.
a scuzzbag.
It's taking back your power, kind of trying.
So, it is all still very soap opera-y, but I think there is a truth to it, which I find attractive and infectious. You want more of it.
Yeah.
I think I wasn't super excited about the cinematography in this episode. I felt like it didn't necessarily feel soap opera-ish to me, but it did feel staged. Even the exterior shots and scenes felt like it was on a stage a little bit more than I've noticed in previous episodes.
Gotcha.
I don't know what about the episode and the cinematographer or the director made it feel that way, but just to my eye, this episode, I felt that a little bit.
Yeah, for anybody who's watching the special edition with the Log Lady, it was actually nice because
You can watch them all on YouTube if you don't have the Blu-ray.
The
for all
Log
of
Lady.
The Log Lady introductions, yeah.
and which is great because it had me. This is the first time we kind of see the Log Lady as far
This
as
is the first time that we sit down with her.
Yeah, we sit down. So having the introductions was kind of fun because it made me, once I saw her and we had that scene, I was like, okay, I feel like I already not know her, but, you know, I've had these experiences every episode. So, like, sitting down, I'm all taking out, and I'm like, okay, what was it like for people who watched it for the first time without these introductions? You know, these intros with the Log Lady. Because now it's like, I was used to the way she talked. This lady's weird. This lady is her wording, everything. It's like, what is going on? And because I was already kind of used to it, so now it was nice to have her actually have that experience and see her for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I was thinking about that's your real first introduction to her, even though you've seen some of the stuff.
Yeah.
She's not with anybody and interacting with someone. So I was thinking about it, and it is quite a bravura introduction to a character. You know, the owls were quiet that night. Tea can wait. Like, just the stuff she's saying, and Cooper is a little lost, but everyone else is just
normal.
Yeah. And I think we learned a couple important things about her husband in that. Did you catch that stuff? There was a lot happening, right?
There's a lot happening. I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot because I was trying to listen to each word and everything and how and see if it pertained to the dream of Cooper. You know, that kind of stuff. So it was But the husband, what part did I miss?
She, the way she talks, they're not little clues to anything.
Yeah.
I think Lynch has a way of... The one-armed man in Cooper's dream says something that always sticks into my head. He says, "We lived above it." A convenience store, I think you say. I mean it like it sounds, not like it is. Or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's true, they lived above a convenience store. But because it's worded strangely,
Yeah.
you second guess yourself.
Yeah.
But no, you just take that for what it is.
It sounds-
So there are little clues in what the log lady is saying, but it's not a secret
Yeah.
to solve.
Gotcha.
But we learn that her husband died in a fire the night of their wedding.
That's right. Okay, so yeah, I got that.
And there are a couple things
The fire.
that I'll say, because I don't think that they're spoilers. For myself, this is a feeling that I have, and I think the story supports it. But
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people could have different interpretations. But we have thought of, we've been introduced to Sparkwood in 21. That was the light. Is that Sparkwood in 21?
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
And now the Ghostwood Estates in this episode.
Mm.
And Hawk, after they have this conversation about her husband dying in the fire, Hawk says to her, "The wood holds many spirits, doesn't it?"
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like right there, I feel like the log is her dead husband.
No,
talking
yeah, no, that's
her.
yeah. And that's actually, when you mentioned about it, her husband dying and asking that question, I couldn't recall. I remember fire, but that is the one thing that I caught on was that, yeah, I was like, is
that
her husband? She thinks at least her husband is in that log, and that's why she's like, talk, but I'll talk for you.
Yeah.
But it's my husband. And
Is
that's
she
it.
nuts, or
Yeah,
is she
yeah.
actually having a conversation
with this log,
soul?
who is her husband's soul. Yeah. But no, yeah, I picked up on that as far as...
Because even James and Donna, James says Laura's spirit is out there wandering, and we need to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these lines that they sound flowery, they sound poetic, and they are.
Yeah.
But they all count in certain ways. Maybe Laura's spirit is out there.
Yeah.
Maybe the log lady's husband's spirit is Ghostwood, you know? So, for the world of Twin Peaks, like, I don't know, Field of Dreams,
Yeah.
or Princess Bride, or Labyrinth, you
Yeah.
just let yourself go on this journey.
Yeah.
And you can have a great time if you do, or if it's not your type of story, then
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not going to be for you.
And I think I see that being at the beginning, like episode 1, being introduced to those kind of ideas, you know? It takes you not knowing what the series is about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. So like if someone were to bring that up to you, you're not going to like, oh, this is one of those type of series. So like your mindset has to be kind of either pushed towards that way or expecting it for it to be like, otherwise it'll either go over your head or you'll put a stop to it and think that, well,
Or
no,
we'll lose you.
that's not right. You know, like this isn't one of those series. We're talking about spirits and we're talking about what's going on in the woods. No, I thought we were talking about someone's death.
Right.
This is a mystery, a crime. It's, you know, like, is
It's a
there
very
more to
difficult
that?
balance, I think, and a lot of creators struggle with it. Where do you find a place within your pilot? A pilot is almost like the first 10 pages of a script, a feature script, where it's like the setup and there should be at least an element of everything within that story to be found in the first 10 minutes or 10 pages of your script. And the pilot kind of acts that way. So in the pilot, you've got the mom waking up at the end. Is she having a vision? Isn't she?
Yeah.
In Lost, they have the monster show up at the end.
Yeah,
I don't know. In Alias, there's this sci-fi little red ball of water floating. So they have hints to where the series may be going down the line, but you don't want some series, they don't want to throw that out there right away.
Yeah.
And Lost certainly lost. I feel like it was always a genre cult show
Yeah,
that
yeah.
somehow exploded into this phenomenon, but then around season 3 or so, lost most of the people that don't like those type of shows and just became that cult following again.
Yeah.
The like kind of appropriate
Mm-hmm.
amount of people watching that show.
Yeah.
And this show, I don't know. I have to take a look at the ratings and see how it goes
Yeah.
along. I don't really know. But still, even within this stuff that we're talking about, nothing so outside the box that you couldn't see it in a show.
No.
I mean,
yeah,
in
yeah.
a town.
Yeah,
in the middle of
exactly. Yeah,
nowhere.
no. It fits. It's not too like supernatural or anything where it takes you out of it. It's like, oh, this changes everything, you know,
Right.
kind of thing. But it's enough to where it's like, it's everybody has their own mindset about what's real and what's not. But it takes that small town feeling of like these spirits in the woods and stuff like that. So it's not taking. It doesn't take you out of it, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they grounded it fairly quickly with mythology, real world mythology,
Mhm.
and Coop's research into Tibet
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
his whole throwing of rock ritual,
Yep.
and how that led to certain clues, and then his dream is now leading to other clues. It's just peeling back layers of the onion, revealing another layer underneath as
Yeah.
we go kind of deeper into this town, and the darkness in the woods and the Bookhouse Boys and what they've been protecting
Mhm.
this town from for all these years. It's always been there, and it's just, it feels like it's still a very, very much a mystery to the people of the town, and we've been introduced to it now to the point where I think the average person in the town knows about as much as we do about that supernatural stuff. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
something's
yeah.
weird over there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. But we don't go. Well, no,
Yeah.
but just like the log lady now, to where
Yeah.
it's like
Oh,
if we
that's
see
log
her
lady,
again
she's
now, it's
weird.
just like that's her.
Yeah.
That's how she is. That's,
Who knows?
yeah,
You just kind of shrug like,
yeah.
don't insult the log.
Yeah.
And you might learn something from it, but who knows?
Which is why now it's kind of like Cooper's perspective along the way, or like we're kind of going along.
Yeah.
There's some things we learn faster than Cooper, but there's
Mhm.
it's that experience of
Yeah.
like the newcomer.
He's still kind of our, he's our constant.
Yeah, he's constant. Lost.
So, after the log lady,
Mm-hmm.
Cooper had said something about the red drapes, and Truman says, "Is this the
Oh
cabin?"
yeah.
And Coop says, "Maybe, maybe not." And they go in, and it's the log lady, and she says, "You were supposed to be here 2 days ago,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's on
That's
you
young.
guys."
Yeah. It's,
Then they find another cabin, and in that cabin are a couple of just straight up the red drapes.
yeah.
There's always music in the air.
Yep.
There's a couple other things, but I can't remember if they've been revealed yet. But we do know that they found a bird, which
Yeah.
they've been looking for a bird because it was,
Yeah, the bird. Yep.
the marks on Laura was
Yeah.
by a bird.
And then the coin.
The coin.
Yeah.
One-eyed Jacks.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
One-Eyed
that's what I
Jacks,
was going to.
yeah.
So they found this poker chip with a chip out of it, or it was broken.
Yeah.
And the piece was in her stomach
Yeah.
with the J on it.
Yeah.
And there was some blood on the ground as well.
Yeah.
So
So if anything,
we'll see what happens.
everything
with that
lines
blood.
up. This seems like the crime scene.
Seems like the scene of a crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those. Yeah. Or did somebody plant it?
So we'll see. I'm surprised that we talked this long about this episode. I didn't think we would. I think the biggest takeaway from it is that it settles into the way that they want to tell their story, I think, in their intention. They're not telling the story of... It's not called FBI agent Dale Cooper's investigation into Laura's death. It's called Twin Peaks, and you're supposed to enjoy, and I think their intention is for you, or their hope is that
Yeah.
you will enjoy all the characters equally, or at least other things as much as you're enjoying Coop and his investigation. And moving forward, try not to lose sight of all that stuff as you focus just on this and you want the
Just
prize
want the
of
answer of that,
who killed her.
Yeah.
Because
There's more
there's
after
more.
it.
There's more after it,
Yeah.
there's more before it, and if that's all you're looking for, it's too bad because you'll lose out on a lot of fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of junk in there coming up. It will try your patience, but ultimately, I think the end game is very worth the effort to finish.
Perfect.
All right, so thanks for joining us on Investigating Twin Peaks. We're going to watch another episode right now, and I hope that you guys will watch that one as well and come back and visit us for the next episode.
Yeah, I'm Garon.
I'm JD.
Sweet dreams.